Welcome, wanderers. Today we take a descent into the heart of Appalachian legend, where the bell witch waits in a house that remembers, a sigil pulses beneath the floorboards, and bloodlines carry promises the living never made. Before we begin, take a moment, like, subscribe, and share this episode with anyone who walks the line between history and haunting. It helps us keep the stories alive, and some stories demand to be heard. Now close the door, dim the lights, and listen closely. The Bell Witch has returned, and she knows your name. The wind moves like a living thing through the bare trees, thin and reedy, almost human in its pitch. Frost clings to the weeds along the roadside, each blade trembling as Flora White walks past. Her breath ghosts out in front of her, dissolving into the cold Tennessee morning. Flora hasn't been back in decades, yet the land remembers her. She feels it in the way the air tightens around her ribs, in the way the crows fall silent as she approaches the old Bell property. She's 52 now, but the hills make her feel younger and older at the same time, like a child returning to a nightmare she once escaped, or an old woman revisiting the place where her story first cracked. She stops at the bend where the Red River comes into view. The water is sluggish, dark as iron, carrying the smell of wet stone and winter rot. Her grandmother used to say the river held echoes, voices that didn't belong to the living. Flora never believed her, not really. But today, the air tastes like those old stories. She grips the strap of her satchel tighter. Inside are 3 letters that dragged her back here. Each envelope yellowed, each message written in a trembling hand she didn't recognize, and each containing only one sentence: she's awake again. Flora had tried to ignore them. She burned the first letter, threw the second in the bin, but the third arrived on a night when she couldn't sleep, when she felt something cold brush the back of her neck in her own kitchen, hundreds of miles away. That was when she knew the letters weren't warnings. They were summons. She steps onto the Bell property, and the earth feels soft beneath her boots, as if it's been disturbed. The farmhouse sits crooked against the horizon, its roof sagging like a tired spine. The windows are dark, but not empty, and Flora feels as if she's being watched. The way one feels watched in a forest at dusk by the animals. A hush falls over the land. No birds, no wind, just the sound of her heartbeat too loud in her ears. And then a whisper, so faint she almost mistakes it for memory. It curls around her ear, warm and intimate, like someone leaning in from behind. A woman's voice, old, amused. Flora's breath catches and her skin prickles. She hasn't heard that voice since childhood stories, since nights spent under quilts while her grandmother whispered warnings she pretended not to believe. The voice exhales a single word, drawn out and almost affectionate. Flora. Flora's knees weaken. Bell Witch knows her name, and she's been waiting. Flora crosses the yard, each step sinking into the soft-churned earth. The farmhouse looms ahead, its boards warped, its porch sagging, its windows clouded with grime. The place looks abandoned, but not empty, and it has the posture of something holding its breath. She pauses at the bottom step. The wood is darkened with age, but a single patch near the edge is lighter, freshly splintered, though something heavy scraped across it. Flora crouches, running her fingers over the raw wood. It's cold. Too cold even for February. A memory stirs, her grandmother's voice whispering warnings about Kate's habits. She scratches, she knocks, and she drags things where they don't belong. Flora straightens, swallowing the tightness in her throat, and pushes open the door. The hinges groan like an animal in pain. Inside, the air is stale, thick with dust and the faint scent of river mud. Light filters through the warped boards in thin lines. And the house feels smaller than she remembers, like the walls have inched inwards over the years, hungry for warmth. Flora steps into the front room, her boots leaving prints in the dust. But she notices something. Another set of prints already there. Bare feet, small, leading from the centre of the room towards the hallway. Instinctively she follows them, her pulse thudding in her ears. The hallway is narrow, shadow-lined, peeling wallpaper that curls like old skin. And the air grows colder with each step until Flora can once again see her breath. A soft tapping begins behind her, slow and deliberate. Flora turns. Nothing moves and the tapping stops. She forces herself forwards towards the back room, the one that used to be a pantry, the one her grandmother always refused to enter. The door is slightly ajar as if someone slipped through just moments before. Flora pushes it open and inside the room is just shelves, dust, and a single object placed carefully in the centre of the floor. A bell. Small and brass and old enough to belong to the Bell family themselves. Flora's breath catches. She recognises it. She's seen drawings of it in old family records. One of the objects the entity used to ring in the night, waking the bells from sleep, announcing her presence with a sound that was never quite cheerful. The bell trembles. Just a shiver at first, then a violent rattle. Flora steps back, heart hammering, and the bell lifts, an inch, then two, hovering in the air as if held by invisible fingers. A whisper curls through the room, brushing the back of Flora's neck. Not a word this time though, just a laugh. Low, feminine, pleased. The bell drops to the floor with a sharp, ringing crack, and Flora stumbles backwards into the doorframe. Her breath comes fast, shallow, and she feels the house watching her, waiting for her next move. And beneath it all, beneath the dust, the cold, the silence, she feels something else. Recognition. The Bell Witch knows exactly who she is, and she's not done. Flora backs out of the pantry, the echo of the bell still ringing in her bones. The house feels tighter now, as if the walls have shifted closer while she wasn't looking. She forces herself to breathe slow and steady, though the air tastes metallic, like old coins pressed against her tongue. She moves back down the hallway, trying to orient herself, but the house seems different than she remembers. The floorboards groan under her weight, but some groan back, too low, too deliberate, like a voice imitating. Her grandmother's stories rise. Kate could mimic anything. Animals, children, the living, the dead. She'd speak in your own voice if it pleased her. Flora reaches the parlour doorway. The room is dim, lit only by the weak winter light filtering through warped glass. Dust motes drift like ash. The fireplace is cold. A soft humming begins. At first, Flora thinks it's the wind slipping through the cracks, but the melody is too precise. A hymn. One she hasn't heard since childhood. Wondrous Love. Her grandmother's favourite. The humming grows louder and then it splits. And one voice becomes two, and two become four, and four becomes a chorus. All humming the same tune, ever so slightly out of sync, like a room full of unseen mouths trying to remember how to be human. Flora steps back, heart pounding as the air vibrates with the sound, and then the humming just stops. The silence is both heavy and expectant. A woman's voice speaks from the far corner of the room. "You're late, Flora." Flora spins toward the voice, but the corner's empty. Only shadows cling to the peeling wallpaper. Another voice joins, this one higher, breathier, like a young girl. "We've been waiting." Flora feels her throat tighten and she forces herself to speak. "Who sent the letters?" And the answer comes instantly from behind her ear. "I did." Flora whirls round and there is nothing, only the faint scent of river water. Her grandmother's warnings echo again. Kate doesn't just speak, she surrounds. She fills the room like smoke. The floorboards behind Flora creak, slow, deliberate footsteps. Barefoot, the same size as the prints in the dust. This time Flora doesn't turn. She can't, her body just refuses. And then a child's giggle breaks the silence. And then a whisper. "Touch her." And a cold hand clamps around Flora's wrist. She gasps, stumbling forward, wrenching herself free. The grip was small, definitely child-sized, but impossibly strong. Her skin burns where the fingers touched her as if frostbitten, and the room erupts with laughter, multiple voices overlapping. Flora backs out into the hallway, chest heaving. She feels the house shifting around her, the air thickening, the presence tightening its hold. And beneath the chaos, one voice rises above the others. A woman's voice, sharp as a blade. "You carry their blood, Flora White, and I do not forget my favourites." The laughter stops, and Flora realises with cold certainty settling into her bones that she was not summoned as a witness. She was summoned as an heir. Back in the hallway, her breath ragged, the echo of laughter still clinging to the walls. The house feels different now. Charged, awake, as if something beneath the floorboards began to stir after a long sleep. The air is colder, but not the natural cold of winter. The cold of deep places that are forgotten. River caves, forgotten graves. She presses a hand to her wrist where the small fingers gripped her, and the skin is mottled, bruised in the shape of a child's handprint. Flora forces herself towards the staircase. The steps rise before her like a spine, each board bowed and brittle. Her grandmother once told her never to go upstairs in a haunted house. That's where they gather, child. Spirits like high places. But Flora feels pulled, as if the house itself is guiding her upwards. Halfway up, the temperature drops again, and her breath fogs in front of her, drifting upwards like incense. The wood beneath her boots creaks, not under her weight, but under someone else's. Footsteps echo above her, soft and quick like a child running across the landing. A long, slow exhale drifts down the staircase, and Flora's skin prickles. She continues upwards, each step a battle against her own instinct. And at the top of the stairs, the landing stretches into shadow. The wallpaper here is older, patterned with faded vines and flowers that seem to twist in the dim light. And a single door stands open at the far end. The old Bell family bedroom. The one where John Bell had died after months of torment. Inside the room, it's nearly bare. There's a broken chair, a collapsed bed frame, and dust thick enough to write in. Flora steps inside and the door slams shut behind her. She jumps, spinning round, grasping at the handle that refuses to turn. The wood vibrates beneath her palm as though something on the other side is leaning against it. And a whisper rises from the far corner. In the corner, the shadows ripple, not with movement but presence, dense, layered, like smoke trapped in a jar. The whispering grows louder, resolving into multiple voices, men, women, children, all overlapping or murmuring the same phrase. The line endures. Flora's stomach twists. She steps back, but the air behind her seems to thicken, pushing her forward again, and the shadows swell. A woman's voice emerges from the chorus, clear and sharp, unmistakably the same one that spoke her name downstairs. Blood remembers Flora White. Flora's throat tightens and she forces out a whisper. "What do you want from me?" The shadows pulse as if amused by her question. "To finish what I began." Flora's breath stutters. Her grandmother's stories flood back of how Kate tormented John Bell until his death. How she claimed she would return in centuries to come. How she favoured certain bloodlines. How she whispered prophecies that always came true. The voice softens, almost tender. "You carry their blood. You carry my promise." Flora's knees weaken and she grips the bed frame to steady herself. A silhouette leans forward, its edges flickering like candle flame. The bells were only the beginning. The room darkens, the air thickens, the shadows surge towards her, swallowing the corners of the room, and Flora realizes that she's not connected to the haunting. She's the next chapter of it. The shadows recoil as Flora stumbles backwards, pressing herself against the walls. The room feeling smaller now, the ceiling lower. Flora forces her gaze downwards, trying to steady herself. But the floorboards beneath her boots begin to shift. Not creak, shift. The wood ripples like water disturbed by a stone, and a low groan rises from the foundation as though the house was waking from a long, hungry slumber. Her grandmother's voice echoes in her memory. Kate moves the world around her, bends it like a willow branch. Flora watches in horror as the rippling boards settle into pattern. Lines, curves, shapes forming themselves with unnatural precision. And a sigil emerges, carved by invisible hands, old and familiar. One she's seen only once before. In a family Bible her grandmother kept wrapped in cloth and hidden beneath the bed. A symbol of the Bell family, a mark of the cursed. Flora's breath catches and she kneels, reaching out with trembling fingers. The carved lines pulse faintly beneath her touch, and a whisper rises from the floor itself. Blood calls blood. She jerks her hand back and the sigil glows faintly, sinking deeper into the grain as though the house is swallowing it. Flora's breath fogs in front of her, drifting upward like smoke, and then a sound. Soft at first, a rhythmic tapping. Then the tapping grows louder, more insistent. It's coming from the floorboards, directly under her feet. Something is knocking from below. 3 knocks, a pause, and 3 more. Flora's stomach twists. She knows the pattern. Everyone in Appalachia knows it. The Bell Witch's call. The knocking stops and a voice rises from the floor. You were named for her. Who? Flora stutters. The answer comes from behind her, from the corner where the silhouette once stood. For the one who helped me. Turning slowly, the shadows gather up again, swirling upward into the faint outline of a woman. Flora Bell. Her grandmother's maiden name. A name she was never allowed to speak out loud. Your bloodline hid me, fed me, kept my promise alive. The silhouette tilts its head as though studying her. And now you will finish what they began. The floorboards tremble, the sigil glows again, and the knocking resumes. Flora realizes the Bell Witch does not merely want her presence, it wants participation. And the house, this old, rotting house, has already begun to claim her. Flora lunges toward the bedroom door. The handle is ice cold beneath her fingers. She twists, but it won't budge. The knocking beneath the floor grows louder and more frantic, like fists pounding from a buried room. The walls groan and the house just feels alive. Flora slams her shoulder against the door. Once, twice. And the wood just absorbs the impact like flesh. And a whisper curls around her ear. Don't run. The air changes, pressurizes almost. Flora feels it first in her ears, then in her chest, as though the room is filling with invisible water. Her breath becomes shallow, the temperature drops so sharply her teeth hurt. And then a hand grabs her ankle. Flora screams, kicking instinctively, but the grip tightens, pulling her backwards across the floor, her nails scraping against the boards. She flips onto her back and there is nothing there, only the imprint of fingers sinking into her skin. Then the realm fills with voices. Dozens, hundreds, layered and overlapping, men shouting, women sobbing, children giggling, and a baby crying, and a man gasping for breath. John Bell's death rattle. Flora clamps her hands over her ears, but the voices seep through her palms, through her bones, vibrating her skull. The chorus grows louder and swells and then cuts off all at once. Silence. And a single voice replaces them. You think you can leave? Flora forces herself to stand, legs trembling. She backs towards the door, and the silhouette forms once more in the corner, studying her with a predator's patience. The wallpaper peels away beneath her fingers, revealing old wood carved with names. Bell names, generations of them. Some crossed out, some circled, and at the bottom of the list is her own. Flora White. Flora's stomach drops. The silhouette steps closer, its form flickering like a lantern flame in a storm. You were summoned, the voice murmurs, because you belong to me. The house shudders violently. The sigil flares with a reddish glow, and the knocking becomes pounding, furious and desperate. And Flora's breath comes fast and shallow. It's a trap, and the Bell Witch has no intention of letting her leave. Flora's vision blurs at the edges, and the room just feels too small. And a whisper rises from the floorboards. Come closer. Flora shakes her head, trying to back away, but the boards beneath her feet almost shift, tilting her forward. The shadow in the corner gathers again, swirling upwards. Flora's throat tightens and she forces herself to step forward, the silhouette tilting its head. You feel it. Your blood remembers. Flora's breath is faster than it's ever been, as her grandmother's stories flood back at how Kate favoured certain bloodlines and whispered prophecies and promised to return. The Bells tried to end me. Your people helped me endure. The voice softens. You were named for her. Flora Bell, the one who hid me, the one who promised her line would keep my name alive. Flora feels something coil around her ankle again. Cold, unseen, but no longer dragging, just claiming. You are the last of her line, and I have come to collect what was promised. Flora realizes with terror that hollows her out from the inside, that she was summoned to be claimed. The house shudders again, harder this time. Flora coughs, stumbling backwards, as the floor heaves beneath her like the deck of a storm-tossed ship. The cold around her leg tightens, creeping higher, wrapping her thigh like a serpent made of ice. The vision blurs, the room tilts, and a sudden crack splits the air. Flora reels as an unseen force slaps across her face. Her cheek burns, her ears ring, and the shadows ripple with delighted laughter. Her grandmother's voice echoing in her memory again. Kate hit hard, harder than any man, hard enough to leave marks the living can't explain. Flora tries to speak, but the air has thickened so much in her throat that her voice dies before it reaches her lips. The floorboards do not creak, but the silhouette steps forward, moving like something that has never been bound by the rules of the living. And a cold pressure clamps around Flora's throat. Not choking, just holding, testing. Flora's pulse hammers against the invisible grip. And the cold seeps into her jaw, her chest, her ribs, until her entire body trembles. You were always meant to return. The knocking beneath Floor resumes, slower now, rhythmic, and the house groans, the beams straining, walls bowing inwards. Flora's vision darkens at the edges, and then the voices return, hundreds of them rising in chaotic chorus, and Flora's own voice echoing back at her in perfect mimicry. The silhouette lowers her head, and the cold around Flora's throat loosens, just enough. Now you understand. Flora realizes the Bell Witch is not trying to kill her. She's trying to break her, to make room for something else. The pounding beneath the board slows, then stops altogether, and a hush falls over the room. Flora forces herself upright, legs shaking beneath her, the silhouette standing before her. Flora's pulse stutters. A whisper rises. It's time. The silhouette lifts an arm, and smoke coils from her fingers, drifting toward Flora like tendrils. Her grandmother's stories echoing in her mind of how Kate could fill a room, fill a person. She promised she'd choose another. Flora tries to step back, but the house, no longer a structure, is a vessel, a participant, just pushes her forward. A whisper curls around Flora's ear. You are the door. The sigil on the floor burns brighter. The lines twisting, shifting, rearranging themselves into a new pattern. A pattern she'd recognised from her grandmother's journal. A binding, a promise, a pact. The lion endures. The silhouette lifts both arms, her form flickering. The house shudders, the sigil pulses, and Flora knows. The Bell Witch does not want her body, she wants her lineage, her name, her place in the old promise. She wants Flora to be the next vessel. Not for possession, but for continuation. A living heir. Open the door. Flora understands. The Bell Witch's return was never about the past, it was about the future. Staggering backwards, the floor rises beneath her heels again. The house no longer resisting her, it's guiding her, positioning her. The silhouette stands at the edge, tall and thin, and the voices return. Men shouting, women sobbing, children laughing, and a baby crying. John Bell's death rattle and Flora's own voice. Flora's breath trembles, pulse hammering, vision blurring. Open the door. Wind rises from nowhere, cold, fierce, and spiraling around her in a tightening vortex. Her hair whipping across her face, her coat snapping against her legs, and the silhouette edges ever closer. Flora opens her mouth to speak, but the wind stills her voice. Her lips move, but no sound comes. You are the last of her line. Open the door. Flora's feet lift from the floor. An inch, then two. her body suspended in the swirling air, her arms flailing, reaching for anything solid. And then the voice returns. The line endures. Flora attempts to scream, and the silhouette reaches forward. Her hand, if you can call it that, touches Flora's chest, and Flora's vision explodes with light. The house shakes violently, the floorboards split, the walls bow outward, the windows shatter inwards in a spray of glass, and then everything stops. The wind dies, the light fades, the house falls silent, and Flora drops to the floor, breathless, trembling. The silhouette is gone, the sigil is dark, and the house is still. Staggering to her feet, Flora edges towards the door, which now hangs open as if it had never been locked at all. He steps into the hallway and a soft humming drifts from downstairs. A hymn. Wondrous love. And a voice. Unmistakably clear. Her own. Flora. She turns slowly, and before her, in the dim winter light, stands a silhouette. Not tall, not thin, not drifting like smoke. Human. Solid. Her height, her shape. Her. The silhouette tilts its head and smiles. If the shadows felt a little too close, don't keep it to yourself. Like, subscribe and share this episode with those who listen for the quiet hours, who believe that folklore never dies, and who know that some doors should never be opened. Until next time, stay warm, stay watchful, and remember, the Bell Witch never truly leaves.